Hello everyone and welcome back to my true crime channel. I hope you're all well. Today I want to look back again at the first media interview that missing SummerWells' parents, DonWells and CandusBly gave. It was within only a few days of their daughter going missing. I found so many red flags from the parents in this first interview. And what I want to highlight to you today, guys, is the extremely bizarre look on Candus's face, the angry look and the filthy, evil look she then gives to Don when Don says it's a possibility that Summer could be dead. So I'm going to share it for you now, guys, with the audio a few times, and then I'm going to show it to you without the audio, slow down a bit so you can appreciate the weird look that Candus gives to Don. I don't think she was happy when he said that. In fact, to me, she looks really quite angry about it. It's really interesting to watch. I will show you it now, and then I'll give you my thoughts and views on it afterwards.
And that's my greatest fear, that she's not able to do any of these things anymore, or that she can possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility. I don't want to address all the negativity. I just want to focus on the positive, because it's so easy to get, lost in that negativity and stuff, and it's just not worth it. So I appreciate y'all, the good things you say, and your prayers. That's awesome. Or that she can possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility. I don't want to address all the negativity. I just want to focus on the positive, because it's so easy to get, lost in that negativity and stuff, and it's just not worth it. Or that she can possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility. I don't want to address all the negativity. I just want to focus on the positive, because it's so easy to get, lost in that negativity and stuff, and it's just not worth it.
So guys, I hope you can see what I'm trying to show you there. The look on Candus's face really is one of disgust, really is one of anger, in my opinion. There's quite a few emotions on her face there. She really doesn't look happy that Don said that. So I will read you out now the statement that Don says that leads Candus to give him that very bizarre look. So Don says, "That's my greatest fear, that she's not able to do these things anymore. Or that she could possibly, I, and he goes to say, I have. He doesn't quite say the whole word have, he says part of it. Then he changes it to I don't. So that's another slip up from Don. He obviously has been thinking that Summer's dead, and then he changes it to don't. So note that. He struggles over the pronoun I, which is always suspicious in my opinion. He goes to say I have. He then changes it to I don't. So note that, guys, because that's really weird. So then going back to that again. So that's my greatest fear, that she's not able to do these things anymore, or that she could possibly, I don't want to think she's dead, but it's a possibility. I don't want to address all the negativity. I just want to focus on the positive. So I won't read you everything else that he says, but that's the most interesting bit. And in the lead up to that, where he's saying about that Summer's not able to do these things anymore, he's talking about her not being able to play outside, not being able to play with her puppy, and that maybe she's stuck in a dungeon somewhere. So it's all rather bizarre what Don says, but what's really bizarre is that look that Candus gave him. To me, it makes me wonder, and I found it weird the first time I spotted her giving him that look. I've now slowed down the footage, watched it over and over again, and really out of the whole interview, it's the most animated Candus's face becomes. Her eyes widen massively. She turns to look at Don in disgust, in my opinion, and shoots him this look. A look that people that are in relationships with somebody else will know. The look you give that says, whoa, no, we didn't discuss that you'd say that. What are you doing? Obviously, guys, these are just my thoughts and views, and I know not everyone's going to agree, but that is what I take from that. Candus was fuming that Don decided to let that little bit of information out, that he's already thinking about his daughter as dead and in the past tense. Even though the pair of them constantly referred to Summer in this interview in the past tense, she doesn't seem to be very happy that he's telling the interviewer in this interview that he's already thinking it's a possibility that Summer's dead. So they must have, in my opinion, before this interview, spoke to each other about what they would and what they wouldn't say. Whether or not they are involved in their daughter's disappearance, it would only be natural as a couple in that situation to discuss potentially what you should and what you shouldn't say. I think he said something that they weren't meant to be saying. She looks really peed off about it, and it's really interesting to look at her face, her facial expressions, and see how she keeps gazing at Don with that real look of disgust on her face. Something else that I think is very much worth noting here, guys, is that if you watch this interview, especially if you watch it quite a few times, Candus doesn't look at Don like this at any other point throughout the interview. She doesn't gaze across at him. She doesn't give him any other dirty looks. I find it really weird that the one time she does is when Don is saying that potentially, possibly, their daughter could be dead. I find it really weird. Don looks at Candus a lot more throughout the interview than Candus looks at Don. The majority of the time, Candus is focused on the camera, and at this one point, this one vital point in the interview, in my opinion, Candus looks across at Don with disgust. She really wasn't impressed at what he just said. So this particular interview is one of the very first interviews that they gave when Summer disappeared in June this year. And what's really interesting, it's the first interview that they gave together that I'm aware of. The first one where we get to see their emotions, or lack of, get to see their faces, get to look at their body language, listen to their statements, analyse what they're doing, analyse what they're saying. I always wanted to believe that they were telling the truth. The first time I watched it, that was what I wanted to believe, but they led me to believe differently, and that's not down to me, that's down to them. So I've already highlighted to you guys that in this interview, I believe Candus shows guilty knowledge of what happened to her sister Rose. I obviously believe, and I'm sure you can guess, she shows guilty knowledge in this interview of what happened to Summer. I believe that Don also shows guilty knowledge of what happened to Summer in this interview. There are many red flags that I've taken from it. I have got a couple of other videos coming out from that particular interview, from an analysis that I've done on other statements that they gave that were very weird, that I will highlight to you as to why I think they're weird. And what I want to know from you, did you spot this the first time you watched it? Did you see Candus's face change, her eyes widen, her turn and stare at Don in that real disgusted way? She looked quite annoyed and a bit angry. It was quite a few emotions going on there, but what I took from that is Candus really wasn't happy with Don. So I'm currently going back through all of the interviews that I can find that both Candus and Don have given, or that Don has done on his own, or that Candus did on her own, although there aren't many of Candus on her own, as you all know. It's really interesting to watch them back at the start. Look out for slip-ups in terms of the language that they decided to use, their body language. There are a lot of displays here of guilty knowledge, in my opinion. I've always thought that the parents knew what happened to Summer, but obviously I had no idea if they were involved. I hoped that they weren't. But as time has gone on, I do now suspect that they are involved In what way? Obviously, I don't know. There are so many theories out there. Was Summer sold? Has Summer come to harm in her parents' care? Was there an accident? Was there something more sinister? Was something done on purpose? Is it a different family member that's involved other than the parents? There are so many theories. Personally, I do not believe that the brothers or the grandma are involved, although I know there is a possibility that they could be, so I'm not ruling it out. I still feel deep down it was an accident. I don't know what went on. I suspect that maybe Candus was on a walk, although I'm never certain on that. The dispatch call to 911, the calls between the police departments trying to sort out getting the police out when this was reported is really interesting to listen to. It's the only part of that we've been able to hear. We've never had access to the actual 911 calls that Don and Candus made. Now they're going to be a real eye-opener when they release them, aren't they? I'm certainly going to be very interested to hear them. So it said during those dispatch calls that the mother, Candus, was on a walk. And if you think back to this interview, Candus mentions, and I'm going to include this for you shortly, that she doesn't go for walks because there are coyotes, there are bears, and there are snakes, and she clearly doesn't like them. There was no reason to mention going for the walk. It wasn't asked of her. She offered the information up, which the first time I saw it, I remember thinking, this is weird. Why is she talking about going for a walk? It's out of context. It's not relevant. It's got nothing to do with the daughter going missing. Little did I know that during those dispatch calls, it is mentioned that she was on a walk when Summer disappeared. So, was she on a walk? Wasn't she on a walk? If you think back, Candus claims, interestingly, that she told the boys she'd be back soon and that could they watch their sister. And we're led to believe that she was going off to help Grandma do something or another with her knee, potentially helping her with the shopping. Something was going on. She'd only be a few minutes. Was it really that she told the boys to watch Summer because she was going for a walk? I've often wondered this. Could Summer have had an accident when no one was looking after her? Was she out playing on her own? Did she fall off that swing? Could she have come to harm from another family member? Obviously, these are all plausible theories. Which one is most likely? I'm not sure. But I still believe that Summer had an accident either at the family home or at that watering hole. So I'm just going to include for you now, guys, the bit where Candus talks about how she doesn't go for walks, because it is very interesting. Make of it what you will. But personally, I do not believe, and I never have, that Candus doesn't go for walks. I think potentially she would go out for a short walk, maybe to smoke a certain something, maybe just to get away from the children and have a break. I know a lot of people have said she doesn't look like she's the walking type. That doesn't mean she didn't go off for the odd 10-minute walk just to get a bit of fresh air, to get away from the children and to get away from the house. Obviously, I could be wrong. I don't know whether CandusBly really goes for walks. Just because she doesn't look like she goes for a walk, though, doesn't mean that she doesn't go walking.
Porch, and I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here. And I watched her walk into the kitchen where the boys were watching TV. And I told the boys, I said, watch Summer, I'll be back. And within 2 minutes, I came back. And I asked the boys where their sister was, and they said, she went downstairs, Mom, to play with her toys in the playroom. I said, okay. And I yelled downstairs for her a couple times, and I didn't get no answer, which was unusual because usually she always answers me. I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. I don't go on walks around here or runs because I'm scared of the bears and snakes and even the coyotes that are around here.
So what I find highly suspicious about that is especially the bit where Candus says, and within 2 minutes I came back. There wasn't really any need to say that. She could have just said, and then I came back. She felt the need to convince that she wasn't gone long. It was within 2 minutes. I think we all know, most of us appreciate an abduction by a stranger within 2 minutes is highly unlikely on a property the size of theirs, when Grandma, Candus and Summer's brothers were all apparently there when Summer disappeared, albeit not in the same room, but either in the property, in a different part of the property, or outside the property, or perhaps Grandma was actually in her trailer and they weren't still planting the flowers. I've never believed the story about the flowers being planted. I've always thought that that was a big ruse and that it never happened. As always, guys, just my opinion. But going back to Candus's walk, or whether she does or doesn't go for walks, I do wonder if she was on a walk, or if she was off, maybe not even having a walk, maybe she was off doing something by herself outside of the property, and maybe, just maybe, Summer had an accident when she wasn't there. So I'm currently going back through all of this interview. I'm listening to it over and over again. I'm picking apart what the parents said, analysing their statements, their very bizarre statements, which raised red flags the very first time I heard them, trying to pick out things like this from Candus's body language, trying to also look at the words she chose to use and detail to you guys where I detect deception. So one thing I can say for certain, I do definitely detect deception when Candus says that she didn't go for walks. None of that's added up. The fact that Don claimed she was having a walk when Summer disappeared never sat well with me, especially when Candus then decided to say that she never goes for walks. Very bizarre. That whole part of the day of Summer disappearing, Candus going for the walk, not going for the walk, just doesn't add up to me. So going back to Candus's weird look that she gives to Don, I definitely believe they'd discussed what they were or were not going to say in that interview, and mentioning the possibility that your daughter was dead clearly wasn't something that Candus wanted Don to say. No surprises there. If Summer was actually dead when this interview was given, clearly Candus wouldn't have wanted Don saying that there was a possibility that Summer could be dead. That's what I take from that. Sadly, I do suspect that maybe Summer was passed on when this interview was given, and that's why Candus gives Don that really weird look. Something else that I want to highlight to you guys, there's another part of that interview where Candus says that she went to look for Summer, she went down into the basement, and that no one was there, and that she was just gone. Candus says, I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. So something that's really interesting to note about that is, watch that, and I am going to include the clip for you, is where she says gone, or just in the lead up to saying gone, she pushes her head forward in a manner that suggests to me that she's trying to convince you that she was gone, and her eyes widen. And you could say it would be the reaction of any parent that loves their child when they've just discovered they're missing. But what I could also say is an option here, is that it wasn't just that Summer was gone, as in missing. Was it that Summer was gone, as in passed away? I'm very sorry to suggest that, guys, but the way her eyes widen there remind me of how someone's eyes would widen when they've found out a loved one is dead, or discovered a dead person, albeit their daughter perhaps. Obviously, I don't know that that's true, but you could say it's how a parent would look upon finding their daughter is missing. But you could also say it's how a parent's face would look and react to finding their child deceased. So I'm going to play the clip for you now, guys. I'm going to play it a couple of times, and then I'm going to put it on mute so you can listen to it, look at her body language without her speaking. I'm going to show you a clip of it mute again, but slowed down, so you can really appreciate how much she widens her eyes there and pushes her head forward in a nodding manner, which is often deceptive, not always, but often. And often it is a way that a person will try to convince another person of something by nodding forward like that in order to try and convince whoever it is that they're speaking to about whatever they're speaking about, whether it's a lie or not. Often, if it's a lie, someone will do that more than if it was the truth, because they really feel the need to convince you because it's a lie. So in my opinion here, guys, Candus is trying her ultimate hardest here to convince the interviewer Summer was gone, definitely gone, and she pushes her head forward and almost sort of really accentuates the word gone. Summer was gone. She's really trying her best here to convince that interviewer that Summer was definitely gone. So here are the clips, guys. I'll be back with you again after.
And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. And so I went down there to check, and she was nowhere in sight. She was just gone. She was just gone.
So I'm sure you can all see what I'm getting at here. Candus pulls a really weird face when she says about Summer being gone, or that she was just gone. Her eyes widen, her eyebrows raise. She moves her head forward in a nodding motion. Not just a nodding motion that's normal, but in a weird way where she pushes her head forward in order to convince. Obviously, guys, these are just my opinions. I do detect deception from Candus and Don throughout this interview. Constantly I see red flags flying for SummerWells' parents. Constantly I hear what I believe to be lies flying out of their mouths. I don't believe a word that they say anymore. I still believe to this day, and I've always believed, that they know exactly what happened to their daughter. So as always, guys, please share your thoughts and views with me. You know I love reading what you think about this case. I love you sharing your thoughts and views with me and discussing the case in my comment section. Did you spot this weird body language from Candus in this initial interview that the parents gave together after their daughter disappeared? Did you notice some of the weird statements she gave? Did you think this whole did she go for a walk, didn't she go for a walk was quite a ruse, quite a weird, bizarre part of the story of the day Summer disappeared? I'm not so sure whether Candus went for a walk or not. And now I'm starting to wonder, was the accident at the house rather than at the swimming hole? I do believe it was an accident. I hate to think that something's happened to Summer, but personally I don't think that she's out there safe somewhere. I hope and I pray that she is and that I'm wrong, but I think after all this time passing with her not being found, it's not looking good for SummerWells. But obviously I hope I'm wrong, and I'm praying that she is going to be found safe. So share your thoughts with me, guys. What do you think, like I said, about the walk? Did she go for one or not? Do you think that's the really weird part of the story? What do you think about the way Candus looks at Don and shoots him that really, really evil look when he talks about Summer possibly being dead? Do you think, like me, they'd decided what they were or were not going to say in that interview? And clearly, Don mentioning the possibility that Summer could be dead was not one of them. That's just my thoughts, guys. Obviously I could be wrong, but I do believe Candus and Don did not agree to mention any possibility of death where Summer was concerned. And when Don says it, in my opinion, Candus looks absolutely horrified. Well, anyway, guys, I hope you're all well. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in this great big world of ours. And as always, I'm going to be back with you all very soon for another true crime video. Bye for now.